Welcome to DataViz Daily. I'm Kevin McGinley. I know it's been a little while since I've recorded a video. I've been on vacation and had some other things that sort of popped up that slowed me down a little bit in terms of being able to create videos for you. So I'm happy to be back here, and what I thought I'd do is I'd kind of jump in where I left off with working with database data sources in Oracle Data Visualization. That's one of the things that last couple episodes have addressed. And if you recall, in one of the prior episodes, I created this data set called commissions. And the primary way that I created that data set was through the use of a SQL statement. So we've got our database here that we're connected to, and I was able to plug in this SQL statement to create this data set and then use it as a project within Oracle Data Visualization. Part of the reason that I did that is because it was much easier to sort of work with this summarized data than it was to try to bring all of the data down into Oracle Data Visualization and try to process it from there. This is a VM that I'm working on. It's not a very high-powered machine. And so working with large data sets becomes a little bit harder in a desktop tool. So always a good sort of strategy to sort of pare the data down. And in case that SQL statement's a little bit hard to read, here's a slightly enlarged version of it. And so what I thought I'd do today is talk about, well, what if you're not someone who is a SQL writer? You would rather sort of build a data set that sort of filters and aggregates and selects the key information that you want in a slightly more GUI fashion. So what we can do is we can use something called data flows. And I've covered data flows before, but I've always used sort of data flows against files to create new files. Here we're going to actually take data out of a database and create a data flow for extracting the data from the database and building a new data set from that. So you can see here that I've got my trade underscore F table defined, I've got my customer underscore D table defined, I've got my date underscore table D defined. And that was done by doing nothing more than going into my connections here. Here was my connection that I had established to my database. And I can create a new data source and pick a specific table. And if you recall in the past episode, we could really only pick one table at a time. So hence having a database for each table that we're going to go ahead and grab within our data flow. And then I can come down here to create data flow. And the first thing it's going to ask me is, well, what data sources do you want? And I'll go ahead and start with the trade F table. We'll add that in. And then you can simply come here and right click and start to add steps to build your flow. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is actually add more data because I want all of my tables to be in here. So let's do trade F and customer D. And let's go ahead and add another step, and we'll add in the date D table. Okay. Now, all of these tables have a lot of columns in them, but I don't care about all the columns. So if you think back to the SQL statement, what I really care about are the columns within my select statement, but I also care about the columns that are in the joins because I need those columns available to me for join purposes. So the first thing that we're going to do is sort of skinny this data down by selecting the columns that we need from each of the tables. So let's come in here to trade F, we'll add a step, and we're going to add the select column step. And we don't want all the columns, which it gives us by default, so we'll hit remove all. And the columns that we do want are the create date key, we want the customer key, and we want the commission value. So we'll come back here and let's get the commission value. Go ahead and add that. We want the create date key, go ahead and add that. And we want the customer key, go ahead and add that. So that gives us the three key fields that we need for this new data set. Now I can come over here to customer D and do the same thing. And this time we're going to go ahead and select the columns that we need, remove all the ones that we don't need. And with this one, we want the customer key because that's part of the join, and we want the state underscore province column. So we'll go ahead and grab the customer key, add selected, and state prov is going to be near the bottom. Could also search for it up here if I wanted to. Go ahead and add selected. And now I've got the two fields for that, and now we need the date columns. So we're going to go ahead and add a step, select our columns, and in this case we need the date key, not the create date key, slightly different in that table, and we need the calendar year description. So let's go ahead and remove all, and we need the calendar year description. Oops, I picked the ID there, that was pretty dumb. Let's grab the calendar year description, and let's grab the date key. Okay, so now we've got all the columns that we need, and what I can do now is control click on these two, and I'm going to go ahead and do a join. And immediately it's going to detect, hey, I've got customer key in both of these. Awesome, so it automatically creates that join for me. I can do an inner join and outer join depending on what I want to do within these two drop downs here, but in this case I'm going to do an inner join. And then I'm going to join to my join. So I've got this join selected. I'm going to go ahead and select this date D flow down here, and I'm going to join those two flows together. That creates me another join. Now this join wasn't as smart, so I've got to go ahead and go in there and tell it what we're going to do here. So in this case we want a create date key on this side, and we want the date key on this side. Okay, so now we've got two joins that bring all of those together. Now we're going to go ahead and add another step to just select the columns that we care about, because we don't need all of these. We don't need all these keys. What we do want is the commissions. We want the state prov, and we want the calendar year description. And that gets us now to a much more smaller data set that we can work with pretty easily. And from there, we're going to go ahead and add another step that allows us to aggregate the data. So we're bringing in commissions, and we want that commissions to be one row per year state prov combination. So we have to add in this aggregate step, and it automatically detects, hey, commission's a number, that's the thing I'm going to aggregate. I want it to be a sum, although I could pick a different aggregation function here, and it automatically detected that we're going to group by those two things. So excellent, pretty smart. We've got our aggregate function set up properly, and now we're going to go ahead and add in a fun step to rename these columns, because these are database columns. I don't really want them named in this manner. So I could do something like commission dollars, I could do something like state, province, and I could do something more simplistic here and just call that year. So there are our renames, and the final step that we have to do here is add this into a data set. So we got to save the data. So we've got to give this a final source. So this could be commissions by year state. And I also want to save this data flow. And we'll probably call this commissions by year state. And if I was doing this in a sort of frequent fashion, I would probably want to put a description in here, as I might accumulate a lot of these over time, but for now I'm going to skip that. And the data flow was successfully saved. So the next step is to actually run this data flow. And if I go ahead and click this play button, the nice thing about this data flow is that it actually runs pretty quickly. So it's going out and doing each of those steps, and it completed that commissions by year state data flow. Well, how do I know it completed? How do I know that it did anything? Well, if I come out here to my home page and I go to my data sources, and I go to all data sources, and I take commissions by year state here, that was created just now, and I create a project, you'll see that I get 3 columns in my project: state, province, year, commission dollars, and I can go ahead and select all of those and create best visualization, and you'll see that by year I get, and this kind of switched it around. I was hoping for a stacked. Let's switch these two around. Oops. That gives us a little bit more interesting look there. So we basically get a data set that's got 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and all the different states and provinces and their corresponding commission values, which is pretty handy that I've now got that data set that's really easy and simple to work with. I don't have to connect back to the database. Now, what if I wanted to? What if the database changes on a regular basis and I want to refresh that data? Well, all I have to do is come here to my data flows, and I've got my commissions by year state, and if I wanted to refresh that data set, all I would have to do here is click run, and it would go rerun that data set and ultimately refresh it with whatever new data was added. Now, I don't have a fancy enough demo here to show you how I could have added some data to the year 2017, but in any event, you'll have to trust that it would have gone out and, if you're familiar with data warehousing, it's sort of the equivalent of a full load of the database, full load of the star schema. It doesn't do any kind of incremental changes or anything like that, just rebuilds it from scratch, grabbing the latest data. So that's how you can use a data flow to actually sort of bring a data set down to your desktop to work with more easily. Taking a couple tables, selecting the columns that you need, aggregating the data, pre-joining it together so that it's really easy to use within a data set within Data Visualization Desktop. So for DataVis Daily, I'm Kevin McGinley. Thanks for watching.